I got chills running through my bones right now. Holding this thing. It screams. At night, I put the book down and it speaks to me. It's not just the fucking voices in my head. It's this book. It says, pick me up and read me. You need to learn all about witches. And I'm like, come on, crazy book. I don't need to learn about my ex-wife. Come on.
This is the Violent Professional Podcast.
You're here for another episode. Oh, the power of Christ compels you. Oh, this episode is sponsored by Evil Vibes. Satan is in the room tonight.
I don't know how many of you guys just got turned off by that. This episode's going to be super dope. It's highly anticipated. I know that it is. And for some of you, you've been waiting a long time for this fucking book review. And it's not just going to be a book review. It's going to be a little bit of history, torture, mayhem, craziness. Because I'm a man of the fucking people. All right? I'm a man of the people. I know what you guys want. I did a little I check back to see which episodes were the most awesomely reviewed episodes? Which episodes were the ones you guys responded to the most? Which episodes did I have a great fucking time being a part of? Which episodes did we do that you guys were like commenting like fiends? Well, it just so happens all the crazy, macabre, weird, and dark shit is what you guys like to hear. So, as a man of the people, I'm going to give you what you want. I'm going to give you little baby birds a little something, you know? That's what we're doing tonight. I hope you are as hyped as I am about this fucking episode. And if you're not, you can go ahead and go to strikeforceenergy.com and pick up some fucking Strikeforce Energy. That's what I got in my little fucking solo cup. I know you were like, he's boozing again. This motherfucker's boozing again. Like, nope, not tonight, son. I got Strikeforce Energy because I want to be extra amped. I want to be extra clear, eloquent, and, sophisticated for you fucking motherfuckers. All you baby birds out there waiting for me to shoot those brain ropes into your fucking mouth. Like you've been waiting for it. Your mouth agape. You're ready to go. You're like, oh, feed me, daddy. Feed me, daddy. Give me all your brain ropes. And then I'm like, now I gave you all the fucking brain ropes your little baby bird heart desires. So go to Strikeforce Energy, pick up some Strikeforce, use code Evil Vibes. You get some money off, say about 25%, I believe. I'm not sure. I think it's 20 or 25%. Don't quote me on that. I'll put a link in the description. You can go pick some up. If you support this podcast, you support Strikeforce Energy, you get fucking hyped, and you listen to me. Now let's fucking go. We're talking about book Daemonologie. All right. Took me a little bit to get through it. To be honest, I had a hard as fuck time to read it. Because I'll just give you a little bit of taste about how they spoke back then in the old tongue. And I'm gonna have a hard time reading this. There are 4 principal parts of the person of the conjurer and the action of the conjuration, the words, and words is written with extra E's and shit, and the rites used, spelled with V instead of U-S-E-D. Where was I? Used to that effect, and the spirites are now that are conjured. Ye must first remember to lay the ground that I told you before, which is that it has no power inherent in circles. If that sounds confusing, I put extra syllables on that. It's because it fucking is. So, this thing took me a little bit to decipher, because I didn't go to Amazon and pick up the one that's already been translated and fucking interpreted and shit. I had to read the one that uses different words for Satan, and spells it all crazy. Like, sometimes when they say devil, they say D-E-U-I-L-L with 2 L's and a U in there. And then sometimes they say D-E And so it takes a little bit of time to get through this bitch. All right. Now, to give you a description of this book that I read, it's the original, uninterpreted, unedited, unchanged version of Daemonologie. This book is spelled Daemonologie by King James I of England. All right, I'm going to give you a little bit, when I go through this episode, I'm going to give you a little bit of background. I'm going to give you a little bit of taste about the kind of torture these fucking people endured, because it was horrendous. All right. And I'm gonna fucking talk to you about what exactly caused the witch hunts, because whether you knew it or not, King James I was the fucking motherfucker responsible for witch hunts from his time all the way until even the 1700s, which is a fucking few hundred years ago. And this book right here, the words in this book, and this is not bullshit, are the words that were used to fucking try and burn witches alive, quote unquote witches. These words, untranslated, this book exactly right here, which is fucking crazy to think. I got chills running through my bones right now. Holding this thing. It screams. At night, I put the book down, and it speaks to me. It's not just the fucking voices in my head. It's this book. It says, pick me up and read me. You need to learn all about witches. And I'm like, come on, crazy book. I don't need to learn about my ex-wife. Come on. All right, let's get into this. And I got some notes. Now, if you know me, and you know a little bit about how I write, it looks as if a child got hit over the head and then decided to learn how to fucking write after they already learned. If that's confusing, it's because I can barely read what I write. I'm fucking horrible when I'm writing. But I understand it somehow. It's like ancient hieroglyphics that only I can read. It's like the Dead Sea Scrolls that only I can read. You know, sometimes I have to translate what I say or I write, and they'll look at this book in 100 years and be like, this dude loved to draw dicks. His books are like a dick treasure chest. And also, I don't understand a fucking word that he wrote. I think he said he. I can understand the numbers. There is some random stuff about people being killed in here. Evil spirits. And so as I go through this, I'm sorry if I fucking take a little bit of time to pause. I take a little bit of time to decipher my own words because again, like I said, I write like a child. But let's fucking get into it, all right? Now, to go back, in the 1500s, there was a king of Scotland. It was King James VI. He was the king of Scotland. He was married to a queen, Queen Elizabeth I of England. Or he wasn't married to her. Maybe he was. King James the Sixth of Scotland went across the seas and picked up his wife Anne. Hold on one second. I'm already stuck. See? I'm already fucked up. I'm not prepared for this. I'm not prepared. I'm trying to get where the fuck he was at when the whole fucking thing started and why he decided to write this. Again, like I said, while I am prepared for this episode, I've got notes all over the place. Should have organized before I talked about it. Anyway, okay, so James picked up his main bitch, Anne from, fuck. I don't have that written down. He was picking up fucking Danish. No. Oh my God. I'm sorry for this, guys. I have it written down and I didn't remember any of this. This is terrible already. He was getting his fucking wife from fucking some European country, all right? From fucking Denmark. Anne of Denmark. True story. And he was picking her up with a fucking, a flotilla of boats. His boat was in the lead, going back to merry old England. Now, he understood and heard about the witchcraft within Denmark, and there were witches over there. He learned of a coven of witches, and he knew about the witches that inhabited his homeland. And he was on the high seas going back to his homeland, and a coven of witches, he believed, cast a spell and a pox upon King James, causing a storm of brew that caused the winds and the currents to go fucking ape shit crazy. All right, there were waves everywhere. It was tossing his ship about to and fro, and like any bitch-made fucking motherfucker, he got back to shore, and people were like, "Whoa, dude, you see that fucking storm? Shit was fucking crazy." And he's like, "Yeah, but it was crazy on my boat, bro." And they're like, "No, dude, like King, we saw how the waves were tossing and turning. We all got hit by this shit." And he's like, "No, my boat was way scarier." And they're like, "Dude, come on, man. I know you're king and everything, and like I could say something to you that would cause me to be beheaded, but let's be honest, dude. It was rough. The seas were rough." And he's like, "No, mine was way rougher." They're like, "Okay, whatever, dude. Like we all fucking made it. We're fine. It was a little bit tossy turvy, and we're here. So let's just calm down and go eat fucking tea time and shit. Let's get some crumpets and fucking stuff." So anyway, he got back and he swore that the fucking some witches combined from England and from fucking Denmark were, they had this, through their covens, which is a witch coven, is a bunch of stinky old bitches that are just together talking about fucking Instagram and how, like, their husbands hate each other and shit. But anyway, they got together and they cast spells to make the waves all crazy and shit. So James, he thought it was, "Oh, they're trying to kill me." And everybody's like, "Dude, calm the fuck down. Weather happens. It's a real fucking thing that happens, generally." And he's like, "No. These were witches. They're out to get me. Everyone wants to kill me." And so I'll give you a little bit of history about James, and you'll see this is a reoccurring theme if I talk about it a lot. So James was very paranoid about witches, the occult, anything that was even religion. So James was a Protestant, which is a very bland religion with no kind of like symbols, or like, like in the Catholic religion, when there's a funeral, they have like the smoky thing. I don't know what it's called. Maybe if you know, comment below. But they have the thing that they put smoke and incense in, and then they wave it over the casket during a funeral. So, and then they have little symbols and things within their religion that kind of steer away from religion in the eyes of King James and how he believed a Christian or Protestant should be. So to him, it was all kind of witchcraft, like every other religion, any religion with like a little like symbols, basically. And I'm not talking about the cross. I'm talking about like maybe I can't say dolls. I'll say like little knickknacks or some shit that represent Jesus or whatever. To him, it's like these are like voodoo dolls. These are like false prophets. These are something else. Because don't fucking fry me in the fucking comments. I don't really know about most of these things, but from what I learned about King James, he believed that other religions had too many other fucking distractors that took away from believing in Christ and God and all that stuff. So when he started getting into what witchcraft is, like what are witches? What do they believe? What do they have? He started seeing a lot of symbols such as like voodoo dolls, and he equated it to other religions and how they practice. So that's kind of what his belief in the whole thing. And if you look at King James, other than this witchcraft shit, because this is the main fucking witch slayer of all time, by the way. This is like his main claim to fame, although it's not the only thing he did. This is like one of the big things that if you look at King James, you'll find a lot of shit about him being a witch hunter. He's like, and still to this day, like, which is weird to say, there's people that are believe in witchcraft and they're Wiccans and all that shit. Maybe they're different things. I don't really know. I didn't get into that. But they look at King James to this day as the main motherfucker, is like the big, nasty boogeyman of witchcraft over the years because it endured past his time. All right, continuing on. So, So as James gets back and he's like claiming that the witches cast this spell upon him because, I didn't even get into why he started to believe that everybody was out to get him. So when he was born, his dad, I think his dad was beaten to death before he was born. So like in the time that his mother was carrying, his dad was like fucking killed, and then his wife. Or not his wife, his mother, after he was born, and he's the prince at this point of Scotland. His mother is sent to jail and imprisoned for, I don't know the exact reason, but his mother was imprisoned, and it doesn't matter. She was in prison, and she died there. So as a young man, even the age of 12, he had no parents, and so he was looked after by caretakers, essentially, until he was of age to take the throne. During that time, there was many assassination attempts on the caretakers for him, and even himself. And so he had 2 caretakers that were killed. And so his whole like childhood is marked with death, and it's people that are around him. People are trying to kill him. Eventually, there was someone in his council that tried to assassinate him, and he held the guy down, beat the shit out of him. And this is when he's already taken the throne. He's beat the shit out of him, held him down until the guards got him and took the dude away. And so this dude's already dealing with a lot of fucking people trying to kill him as a king, as a young king, and he takes the throne. And eventually, like, he's very suspicious of everybody that's around him. He doesn't really he's very paranoid about people in general and just people that are close to him. So he keeps his distance from people, and he starts claiming wild shit like, all of these people are witches. They're trying to kill me. Everybody out here is a fucking witch, a warlock, a fucking spirit, a sprite, a fucking whatever. No shit. This whole book is based on what demons are, how to fucking identify them, and how to fucking try them. It's like it's a small book. This book with the illustrations, because this has some weird illustrations that have nothing to do with the actual book, is 113 pages, which is small, but it's 3 books in one. And it's basically, first book, how to identify, I don't know the exact order of this because it's hard to fucking understand, mind you. It's like how to identify witches, spirits, evil fucking things, Satan, how they work together, what they do, then how to try them and how to execute them. It's the full gambit. It's the I would say Bible of finding and hunting witches and executing them. So because he is just marked with death, his whole fucking existence so far, from a fucking infant to juvenile before he was born to the time he was king, people trying to assassinate him left and right. He, as you can imagine, he's very cautious of people. He's very cautious of anybody who's in his court. And he starts to believe that anybody out to get him, why did he believe that witches are out to get him? Well, he learned about this coven of witches in Denmark and in Scotland and England, and he with the storm, he's like, the only way this could happen is through witches trying to kill me, because everybody's trying to kill me. Everyone's trying to kill me. You know, I get suspicious too from time to time on fucking the weather. I think witches, is this something, a brew from my ex-wife? Past loves, maybe? They're angry with me. A recent love, is they casting spells and making it rain? Getting my blue suede shoes all a wreck? I can't wear those blue suede shoes out there when I'm trying to fucking bust a move out in Arkansas. No, so the dude is very cautious of people, as I have said, as I have fucking delivered to your ear holes. And so when he is going through this as the king, he's like, there are fucking witches, and everybody's like, we can't speak of that because God will smite us. We can't even say the words. He's like, nah, son, fuck that shit. We're gonna fucking speak about it. We need to speak about it, you know? He was like the fucking, the man who said, see something, say something. And everybody's like, I don't want to get in any trouble. I don't want to speak on that, you know? Let's just forget about it. He's the first person that's the fucking first neighborhood watch. And he's like, we can't just let this shit go. We see something, we gotta say something. And I see that there's fucking witches casting spells. You know, they put a pox on me. A pox on the phony king of England. You know, they're trying to get him through waves and shit. It's fucking nuts. But the dude, he's basically like, we cannot do that. We cannot just sit idly by and not say something if there's fucking witches. If you see a witch, you gotta fucking call a witch a witch. You know, you can't let people just go like, well, that person's probably a witch, but I'm not gonna say anything. I gotta fucking say something. You know, now I'm talking about witches. There's a goddamn fly in here that's been pestering me. I'm gonna get into why I think somebody cursed me here a little bit earlier, or a little bit later in this episode. But I want to get through the meat and potatoes of this fucking thing, since he's from Scotland. You know, they like the meat and potatoes. So because of this, King James says, fuck you bitches, I'm gonna write a whole fucking book about it. I'm gonna call it Daemonologie. The definition of demonology is the study of demons, of evil spirits, the belief in demons, a doctrine of evil spirits, a catalog of enemies. That's what that shit is. Even though it's spelled all funky and it has extra syllables and extra words, this book right here is the guide that was still used hundreds of years later to fucking find, fix, and finish fucking witches, dude. You know, lots of fucking people died because of this book. It feels hot when I touch it. I love it. This is going on my fucking bookshelf. Because it's mine, first off. I bought the shit for $5.99 on fucking Amazon. Isn't that a weird thing to think about? This book has killed fucking 200,000 plus people. This fucking book right here, the words inside of it, for being witches, like falsely killed. A lot of those people may have been witches, but a lot more of those people were not fucking witches. They were just killed because somebody said, Gertrude's a witch. Like, they're like, burn her at the stake. Lost my train of thought. But anyway, James wrote this book because he knew there was a problem. There was witches. And he needed to get rid of them. But he couldn't just go around saying, you're a witch. He needed a way to fucking identify them. And so he went around interviewing people, finding out about witches from fucking people that have seen weird things, making it acceptable to fucking say something, you know, finding out about them, capturing potential witches and interviewing them himself as judge, jury, and executioner. Maybe not the executioner, he had other people do that for him, but he would interview these people and use their words to find out about witches. Now, it wasn't always that simple. Because let's just say you get accused of being a witch. You're going to be like, oh yeah, I'm totally a witch. I cast spells. No. You want to try to assassinate the king of fucking Scotland or England. You gotta fucking torture him first, because no one's going to say shit to you. And that's exactly what this motherfucker would do. He would put them in fucking prison. He would put them in the dungeon, and he would torture them and continuously have them interviewed and interrogated until they confessed to whatever the fuck he wanted. You know, it's not so much the I'm going to torture you, you're going to tell me. It's a lot of the interrogation, and to this day, I assume, is I don't give a fuck about you. You're going to tell me what I want because I'm going to get your family. And then everybody suffers because you won't say what the fuck. You won't tell me what I want to hear. All right? So, eventually, James VI of Scotland becomes James I of England because Queen Elizabeth, ends up dying. And so he takes the throne. He becomes the King of England. Oh, the King of England. Now, for everybody that's an English listener, I'm sorry, or anybody that's knowledgeable about the matriarchy, patriarchy, whatever the fuck you want to call it, the Kingdom of England. I'm sorry if I'm butchering it. I'm just trying to get to the meat and potatoes of this whole thing, which is killing witches. All right? So, let's get into why he wrote this. I may have spoke on this, but the reason he wrote this book is he wanted to find out what witches are, how to identify them just by seeing them. Like, how do you identify anybody as witches? What are they doing? He also wanted to make it so that people could acknowledge that witches exist. You know, because like I said before, it was taboo to even talk about because they believe that it's like anti-religious to acknowledge the fact there were witches because that goes against the word of God. All right? So they wouldn't even speak of it because they believe that they would cause, just by mentioning it, it would be, it would go against God. It would cause trouble in their life. You know, it was not religious to speak of. There's no way this could happen. There's many reasons why these people could not say or feel acceptable to say, like, tell that they thought this person was a witch, which may have saved a shit ton of people. Because if people were just saying like everybody's witches back then, or is it acceptable, everybody would be a witch. It's kind of like today. You look at Facebook and the terror that you might have been exposed to extremists, or people are like hitting a button saying, I know an extremist. It's kind of like that. It's like today's witch hunt. If you think about it, that's fucking odd. You can just say that somebody's an extremist and then Facebook goes, you may still have time to be saved, Jeremy. You were fucking introduced to extremist material. And then I respond, yeah, anything on Facebook. I was exposed to all this stuff because I'm a member of Facebook, and it's Facebook that's the person, that's the entity that's the extremist. No one else. God damn, they're trying to stoke fear. Like this thing I'm talking about is so relatable to today. It's a modern day witch hunt of everybody's an extremist, except for the fucking organization that's saying everybody's an extremist. Maybe you're pushing fear in everybody else's fucking hearts. Sowing discourse and discord and all kinds of cords in fucking people's hearts and minds. You're causing the problem. You are effectively King James I. That's what you are, Facebook. Tell me I'm wrong. You believe that shit? If you've been labeled as a fucking extremist, comment below and like this fucking thing. Let me know in the comments of whatever you're looking at. Were you labeled as that, or did you see any of this extremist shit? I'm kind of worried because I never got that notification. Might be because I don't go on Facebook that much. But I didn't get anything. I saw fucking gifs of cats on Facebook. I send photos to my mother. Pour me a drink, clear my schedule. I'm on FaceTime with my mom tonight. All right, so he wrote this book because he wanted to have a clear, concise guide on how to identify witches so that everybody knew this is what witches are. The problem with it is I can barely read the fucking book, so I don't know what I'm looking for. But worse, back then, Barely anybody was literate. That's why this, in the eyes of people in general, is such an impressive work, because barely anybody was literate back then. That's why I think all the letters and shit are funky. But barely anybody was literate. It was like the really well-off king. A lot of times the kings weren't literate, but the impressive part about it is he was literate and he could put out a message. This is actually like one of the most like a really great work when it comes to literature, even though, and it's basically like how it was written during the time, what it covers, the structure of it, the fact that he could take characters and put them in a book like they're having a conversation about what they're looking for. So essentially like a question answer, like a frequently asked question, and it was like through the eyes of two characters that were he made up and had them have a discussion so that people could follow along and be related. It could be relatable and they could picture the whole situation, be like, oh yeah, that's what a witch is. So basically one person knew all about witches, what to look for, and then the other person was like asking questions like, well, what about this and what about that and blah blah blah, and the other person was answering the questions. So it's labeled as one of the great works of history. And it's a lot of people in the occult have this book and they read it and shit. In the occult. People that like books in the occult or whatever. The book was designed, or the stories were designed to show people that witches exist and how to identify them and how to try them and how to punish them. All right. It had things like necromancy in there, like what is necromancy, what is a witch, what is a warlock, what are evil spirits, what are demons, how does Satan work with them, how do they cast their spells, what they try to do, what's a coven, like basically everything that has to do with witchcraft he has in this book in these 120 pages, some odd pages. But this book, once it was complete, it sparked the North Berwick witch trials, which is literally one of the first witch trials of history. This is when they actually went after paganist people, women that were just accused, and through these witch trials, which lasted for essentially 3 years, 1590 to 1592. Go check my math. 100 people were killed and burned at the stake for being witches. This was not just women, this was men too. They lumped everybody in as witches during that time. And during this time, using his guide that he built, or this book, Daemonologie, he used this as the main book to identify these people, try them, and then execute them. And so 100 people were killed during that time. This was effectively the first witch hunt in history. And so, yeah. There was no law about this at the time, but by the end of this whole thing and after years of identifying, and I'm sure there were some killed, still captured, tortured, all that stuff for information. But in 1604, a law was put in place that in England, when King James I, now at this point, he had in law that if you were casting spells, you were a witch, or fucking lightning bolts, shooting magic missiles and fucking, doing all kinds of witchcraft shit. If you were tried and you were guilty of the crimes of witchcraft or witchery, you were put to death. There was no other punishment. There was no, you're going to rot in this prison cell. It was, if you're found guilty of witchcraft in any sort, talking about it, being a witch, put to death. Put to fucking death. All right? One of the main things that King Jimmy the First, that he focused on was a lot of how are these witches, how do they gain their magic powers, and what is their relationship with Azazel, who is also known as Satan. Azazel might be his fucking DJ name. Who fucking knows? But he focused on that when learning about the witches. Azazel, his main thing was he's teaching man the art of war and women witchcraft. So he would give these men that were had a relationship with him in some way, how to become savage motherfuckers, and the witches are the bitches to become witches. So that's what his role was. That's how their relationship it was looked at. And then I got a note here. 1590, Elizabeth I dies. King James VI of Scotland becomes a king. So let's go back to the other times. He was doing the witch trials, the North Berwick witch trials between 1590 and 1590, the year of Queen Elizabeth's death. So he would have been King James I, King Jimmy I of England. And he just went whole hog on this fucking witchcraft shit. He was like, I'm king of fucking England. You're all going to die. Yeah, see, I had it out of order, so I have this part right here. It's kind of starting at the beginning. How did he get so crazy about witches? He returned from Denmark, as I said, with his wife Anne Storm. He blames the witches that they tried to kill him through a storm. His mother was beheaded in prison. His dad assassinated, orphaned. Two attempts to assassinate him as a teen. No wonder he's edgy. He's got a little bit of edge on him. Witches believed to be the allies of Satan. They had a pact with Satan, sold their souls to him. Thousands of people in Europe. His little event. Let me get some strike force. I gotta get fucking amped up because this shit's about to be fucking wild. All right. This is where the real murder and mayhem takes place. So, after these trials, and through them and after them, in between, till the law was enacted, thousands of people were sent to their death because of the fucking storm. Thousands. All right? And that's just a drop in the bucket compared to how many people that were fucking killed from him just being fucking like, you're a witch. And people just saying, this person's a witch. People being... just claiming their neighbors are into witchcraft and shit, and they're just fucking Xing them. So in Europe, during this time, they had a forest of stakes, and you could look at Vlad the Impaler. It was very much similar to that. Basically when they executed this next series of witches, it was basically, they describe it as a forest of stakes. So just stakes everywhere, putting people, women, impaling them on stakes and burning those stakes as those people are screaming. And you can hear just the wails of all of these fucking people, mass execution through fire and misery. Much like, and I'll equate it to today, like how they looked at it. It's like the war on drugs, essentially, but they deem this the war on satanic terror. So you can look at the 80s, 90s, the satanic panic, the time when, like, all the parents were worried about their kids who listened to heavy metal, and they were like, Satan worshipers and shit. There was a lot of that going on, and that was deemed the satanic panic. I'm not exactly sure on the actual dates of that, but it's kind of the same thing. It's like the war on satanic terror, much like the drug war. It's it's essentially like, by even having a little fucking idol or a symbol or weird shit happening, like people being injured around others, it was looked at through the law as a thought crime. So you could look at today's shit with what's going on in society. Just to think a certain way is starting to lean towards thought crimes. Like, you can get in trouble for thinking certain things or believing certain things, which is very un-American if you look at it. And I'm talking about just today's society in America, like the stuff that's kind of happening where, like, getting rid of free speech is now a bad thing in a sense. And like, there's talk about the First Amendment and how everything's up for fucking change and shit like that. It's all very dangerous. And it goes back to like, you know, you can look at people talking about Nazi Germany and all that stuff, but let's go further back and just talk about the fact that these people were being executed because they were believed to be witches or in witchcraft or deals with the devil, and there's no proof of this other than somebody said they were there, but the fact that they believed or they mentioned that they were fucking witches or they said cast some spells with whatever's, like, that's basically a thought crime. And in 1600, late 1500 and 1600s on the 1700s, you can't even think about this shit. If they knew you thought about it, like if you had witchcraft paraphernalia, you basically were thinking about thought crime. You go to death, you know. And this is, you know, and there's a time where not all witches are fucking bad. They're not all labeled bad, because there were some white witches, essentially. I'm not talking about like Chronicles of Narnia shit. They looked at people with the healing arts as white witches, and those were acceptable at one point. And those were more religious line, you know, with the pistol and the fucking whatever the fucking thing is, they mashing up herbs and shit and using it for fucking things, and then they're saying some words to heal people. The people that were doing that, although they had a good sort of magic, they eventually were labeled witches altogether, lumped in, and they didn't care. This went on further because the witches with healing magic were good initially, and then they were labeled bad and lumped in together. The church, and I'm talking about the Protestant church, which became the prevalent fucking church over Catholicism and fucking Christianity. They made no distinction between good and bad magic. Good, bad midgets. All these midgets everywhere, just running around casting spells. They made no distinction between good and bad magic. Good and evil are the same when it comes to magic, because they still are in touch with some other force. God's not going to give you magic powers, and so therefore you have a deal with the devil. Whether or not it's good or bad, you're evil in your core, and you're going to burn. Like, that's how it was. All right? I could only imagine as they're getting burned, everybody's going, "This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine." Woo! And all the witches are screaming and shit. Like, "God damn it! Fucking let me burn! I hate that song! You're singing out of fucking tune!" That's all they cared about. They didn't care about the fact they were burning alive. They just cared about everybody was singing "This Little Light of Mine" out of tune. Or maybe that was just me. So eventually they got so hot and heavy in this fucking witch. You know, mind you, people are fucking dying left and right from fucking witchcraft. They're getting balls deep up in witchcraft. Killing them. Just Xing them off. Just fucking, "You're a witch, goodbye." No, that's the fucking jury. Like, she said, "You're a witch, goodbye." A notable character within this whole fucking story is this lovely lady called Agnes Sampson. And she was accused of being a witch and was brought in before King James, and he did his little thing where he was like, "Hey, tell me about being a witch. You stink like a witch. If you smell like a witch and you look like a witch, you must be a witch." And so Agnes Sampson kept saying, "I don't know what you're talking about." Like, he was like, "You're a fucking witch." And she's like, "No, I'm not." And he's like, "But yes, you are." And she's like, "But no, I'm not." And it went on for a while. And eventually, he's like, "Well, you're going to fucking tell me you're a witch, because this motherfucker told me you're a witch. You look like a witch. You're a handmaiden or some shit. You fucking tend the tulips. And I think you're a witch, so tell me about being a witch." This is kind of how the trend went, is like, they just were accusing and wanting to say that all of these people were witches. Now, Agnes Sampson is different, because this was kind of like sparked where King James was like, oh, fuck, maybe I fucked up with all this everybody's a witch thing. Because as he's going through and he's like interrogating her and she's not fucking giving, she's just like, no, I'm not a fucking witch. They would they would have sleep deprive her, they would torture her in many ways. And then they would just do this, and I think it was like 3 days of fucking sleep deprivation, never letting her sleep. Guards were working in shifts just so they could sleep, but she couldn't sleep, and just keep on torturing her until 3 days later, she's like, what do you want me to fucking confess to? And he's like, confess that you're a witch. And she's like, okay, I'm a fucking witch. Could you kill me now? And so this is kind of like the deal. They were just fucking torturing people and making them confess whatever they wanted to say. So then he gets into it. He's like, okay, you're a witch. What did you, tell me what you did that got you in this place. And she goes, I hung a black toad by the heel for 3 days, collect the venom in an oyster shell to obtain a piece of your linen. So let me go back. So she basically confessed that she was making poison, and she was going to go and grab a fucking piece of King Jimmy's fucking clothes, and then put the venom in the clothes and in the oyster shell to bewitch him, or put a hex on him, or poison him slowly without actually poisoning him. So that's kind of what he wrote in this paper, which was like the essentially like what everybody knew. What I think it's either what this used to be called or what he described to the world, which was a fucking newspaper essentially called News from Scotland, and in which he details how Agnes admitted to this. She was a part of coven of 200 witches, and they were serving Satan. So that's how he let the world know, and that kind of like really fucking amped up everything, and that goes into the fucking Salem witch trials years later. And so he eventually is like, wait a second, we just beat the fuck out of you forever, and you're just saying exactly what I'm saying. You're repeating what I'm saying. He's like, tell me you hung a toad for 3 days and captured the venom from the toad. And she's like, I totally hung a fucking toad by his heels. And what? And he's like, and captured the venom in an oyster shell. And she's like, and captured the venom in an oyster shell. And he's like, I don't believe you. I think you're just fucking copying me. And she's like, yes. And no, but she goes on and tells him, oh, you want me to prove it? Because I'm ready to die. You just beat the fuck out of me for 3 days, and you didn't let me sleep, and I don't give a fuck about life anymore. She went and said, come here, sir. And like he came close to her, and she whispered in his ear something intimate in detail about his marriage, something that's, something from his betrothed, something that she said to him. And they don't describe what it was, but she said something to King James that could only prove that she was a witch. How the fuck would she know? Well, if you get into history about fucking marriages, and especially royal marriages, society was way more open today about, marriages, and like people just knew what was fucking happening. So all the handmaidens and shit around would hear what was said, and then that would be passed on, and people would just know. They were all busybodies. It's like a giant HOA, just fucking, God damn it, I'm mad now. I just said the word. No, everybody would know what was going on with people's marriages, especially royalty. So it's possible. They say it's possible that the words were passed on to Agnes about what was said, and she just used it as like a way to prove it, because she was so fucked up at this point. And it's just like, yeah, I guess I am a witch. I do have a pact with Satan. There's 200 witches out here. We're all trying to kill you. That's kind of what happened, essentially. It's not that she really had a fucking pact with Satan. She just was tired of the fucking bullshit. So, she made James believe her, and so she was burned alive. And this marked the beginning of the fucking full Monty of fucking witch killing. All right, within a certain amount of time, right after this, he was like, "Oh shit, this shit's real, dog. It's more real than real." and they went and fucking executed 2,500 witches. And not just women, men and women. Anybody that was accused. They were burned and hanged. They were hanged and burned. They were burned while hanged and hanged while burned. And while they're doing this, while they're torturing each other, they're all fucking pointing fingers at everybody. And everybody's just like, fuck, that's a witch, that's a witch. And everybody's just fucking falsely incriminating each other because they're trying to get out of this shit. They're just like, they're like trapped. They're like an animal in the corner. And they're just like, fuck this. Jeff's a fucking witch. And like, they went and go, oh yeah. Like, they'd go to Jeff and be like, hey, who else is witches? And he goes, oh, fucking Kyle's punching drywall over there. He must be a witch. And then, like, they're just all fucking saying that everybody's witches. Everybody's a fucking witch. So they ended up killing 2,500 fucking plus people with a very short trial, just them asking. It's so many fucking people. The clergy's involved in this. And they're just fucking killing fucking Catholics, Christians, fucking just killing everybody. Because they're just like, fuck all these witches. Everyone's trying to kill me. James, at this point, his paranoia is at a fucking high. It's palpable. His fucking paranoia is palpable. He's drowning in paranoia at this point. He's like, all these fucking people are trying to kill me. You know? So one of these notable figures during this time, this fine lady named Margaret Aiken. Well, Margaret, she's labeled as a witch during a false incrimination. She's like, oh, she's a witch. And to get out of it, she like goes, I know exactly what to look for witches. And this is the kind of shit that James just fucking loves, all right? He's just like, oh, shit, you're a witch, and hell yeah, you could tell me what the fuck these people are doing. What do these witches look like? This will be easy. I don't even have to reference my guide. Fucking bring it, bitch. And, you know, she starts fucking identifying people and go, yes, no, and she's just fucking doing this. Now, they get a little fucking hair up their ass, and they're like, let's run people that we already ran through and see how they... let's just double check her work and see if she's actually able to fucking identify. So hundreds of fucking people go through, and then they do this. They switch in every so often. They take somebody, put them at the beginning of the line, and they switch their clothes out and come through. Well, at some point along the line, she misidentified, or she didn't know she already identified as somebody as a witch. And then as that person goes back through, she's like, oh yeah, she's not a witch. Doesn't mark her forehead. They use a little bit of ash on the thumb and mark the witches. And so that was that. They were like, holy fuck, this whole thing could be fucked up. Like, we might be fucking this shit up. Is it possible we're fucking this up? Second guessing themselves. People are starting to be unsure about the whole thing. You know, and then that's when James... this is referred to as the Witch Hunter's Handbook, and so this is when it was finalized through all of this data that he's captured over the years, and how to identify people, what to avoid with things, and how to try them. All the shit I've been talking about. He finalizes it and publishes it, and so there you have it. This is like, this book right here is the fucking Executioner's Guide to Witch Hunt. So him writing this book, finalizing it, and publishing it, years later after all this shit, this is what led to the death of a lot of people. It's fucking crazy. So I'll touch again on the Catholics, because they started getting it too. Like, he started executing Catholics, and because he started viewing Catholics dancing with witchcraft because of their ceremonies and the things they do. It resembled very much the things that he viewed Catholicism as, was like dancing with witchcraft in the terms of like the way that they, like voodoo dolls and shit like that, is very similar to what he viewed. I'm not saying that this is what Catholicism is for anybody. Don't get mad at me. Whatever. I'm the middleman here. He viewed Catholicism as very much like that because of similarities, like really heavy similarities in their ceremonies and fucking items and relics that they had. So to him, they appeared to associate with each other. And so therefore, fair game. Everybody's fucking getting it. In King Jimmy's world, everybody's a fucking witch. They're all getting it. Everybody's trying to kill him. You know, and at some point he's executing all these people. It kind of became true. Like Manifest Destiny. Talk about Manifest Destiny. He's fucking killing everybody, and family members are getting pissed off. And now they're picking up witchcraft. So maybe all these people were witches. Witchcraft was, aside from being like a thought crime, it was not only a crime of the mind, it was also labeled as terrorism. And they didn't have terrorism back there, but if you could equate it to anything, it's kind of like he viewed it as terrorism of, he viewed it as terrorism. So the way that people look at terrorists today is the way that a lot of people looked at witches back in the 1500s through the 1700s. It kind of fizzled out in the 1700s, and then, while it did endure and people were still practicing witchcraft even to this day, it's kind of got less of a stigma about it, Eventually, how they started, James started divvying out some responsibilities in this whole thing, because he was saying a lot of people were witches. He was the main fucking judge and jury of the whole thing, and so he had to delegate down. And so some of the chief witnesses and fucking prosecutors of this time were earls and the leaders within the government, the loose term government back then. And so they were just the witnesses. They were saying, "Yep, Susie Q, the one we killed, Susie Q, witch number 6052. She said that about this lady, and she was fucking, she was making Fabergé eggs in her basement. They must have something to do with it. I saw her fucking say, God damn it, she's a witch." So when they were and this was like the initial uses by other people to find, try, and prosecute and execute witches abroad. So they were using this handbook. They were using the fucking witch hunter handbook as like a very strict guide on how to do this. So if it didn't match, didn't hit all the identifiers within this book. I don't know how they fucking read it or understood it. I had a hard time reading it and understanding it. Then they were either guilty or not guilty, and then they were tried accordingly. As this was going on, King James is killing a lot of motherfuckers, and he's feeling good about himself. He's like, I'm finding all these fucking witches. See, I told you there were so many witches. You're all witches. I'm the fucking man. I'm the fucking king witch hunter. Call me the Witcher, baby. And he starts to view himself as mightier than human. He views himself as the main opponent of Satan, like a fucking biblical war. He was the man that was going to take Satan down. He was going to go against Satan, and he was going to win, and he was going to do it through all of the Satan's disciples that he believed. That's what he believed, and he viewed himself as by the end of this whole fucking thing, until he started questioning himself. So during this time, science is like something that it's almost been viewed as witchcraft up until this point. Like people like astronomers and whatever, he writes about that in a book, and he goes, while it's a necessary thing and it's important to society to know about stars and things out there, it could be witches. He just fucking full up and be like, oh yeah, these people are important, but let's fucking kill them. So over time, science, it's undeniable. It's it's starting to become, it's coming into its own existence. It's got its own wings, and it's becoming more prevalent in society. People are starting to understand science, and so because of that, James starts looking at things like, fuck, this is how it happens. This is why I get a boner in the morning. I thought that was witchcraft, So things are starting to become more obvious about how the world works, how things work, and he starts questioning himself in a big way. And by the end of his life, he was like, he fully was aware that he might have fucked up. And he eventually confesses before his death in 1625 that he might have fucked up to a bunch of people, and that's that. Too late. Too bad, so sad, I'm dead. And fucking croaks. It's kind of fucked up. Not kind of fucked up. A lot of people lost their life, like over 200,000 people because of King James. Because of a storm. Because he was fucking like, no, bro, it's fucking super scary on a boat. So, Salem witch trials, they use demonology as their guide to identify, try, and execute witches. If you didn't know, the Salem witch trials took place between 1692 and 1693. It was about a year, and they killed how many people? I think they killed 18 people. 18 people or so, men and women, through that time. But that's another subject in its own thing, and you can go and research the Salem witch trials just to understand that this is a fucking evil book, and not because of the words, but because of what happened because of this book. There's a lot of books out there that people view as good that have caused all kinds of murder and mayhem. I won't say that this book has killed the most people in history, but it's killed a good lot. It's killed a fucking city's worth of people like over its time. And I'm sure they maybe not today, but very recent it's been fucking used to kill people, execute people, call them witches. I say, like, for all the witches out there, just be happy you live in this time, you know? It's fucking crazy. And I hope you learned something, at least through my rambling, mumbling, and nonsense. I sure did. At first, I learned that it's super hard to read. You know? It's very hard to read. Not like easy one bit. There's abbreviations that they fucking used to use like V's for U's and shit. Throw on E's and weird places. The same entity, like Satan, is described in 20 different ways, essentially. He speaks on magicians, devils, spirits, sprites, succubi, incubi. And those are two interesting devils. Like extra words like feigned, Feighne. Like here, for example, he uses devil and Deuille, and then he calls him again Satan, Beelzebub, and Lucifer. And he describes them as different, but Satan is Satan. There's a whole, you're talking about necromancers. You know, necromancers are basically wizards or warlocks that are in touch with the dead. Essentially, they're like, Miss Cleo, don't you know? It's like that. That's a you know, the fucking you want to talk to your dead relative, come on my TV show and be like, I'm feeling a sense that there's someone that knows a Jeffrey out here. Is there someone who knows a Jeffrey? And then somebody's like, I know a Jeffrey. There's like 5 people. He's like, does Jeffrey have blue eyes? It's like, my Jeffrey has blue eyes. It's like what's that thing where you flip the things? But like, or flip the tiles down. Guess who? It's like a big giant game of guess who. It's like, Jeffrey wants to tell you he loves you. He misses you very much. And the guy's like, fuck, Jeffrey was my fucking cat. How did you know? Like, Jeffrey said he's having fun playing with mice and he's got plenty of catnip in cat heaven. Like, you know, it's like that. It's kind of like that. This whole fucking thing's kind of like that. So to summarize this, between the 1500s and the 1700s, undisclosed amount of time, because I'm sure there was a little bit left and a little bit right on this. 200,000 plus people fucking died, suspected of witchcraft, executed, you know. So I want to confess my appreciation for King James and giving me this podcast episode. And I'd like to sing him a little song at this time, and it'll totally fucking make it up. But, you know, if you'd like to listen, here we go. Oh, King James, you got a sexy witch-killing body. I'm gonna admit that this isn't completely made up because I wrote down a few lyrics for you. Oh, James, you got a sexy witch-killing body. If killing witches was your hobby, I'm sure you'd go to Hobby Lobby to get your witch-killing supplies at a discounted price. You know you got them witch-killing abs of voodoo steel. I could make you nachos in my microwave for your last meal. You know witches rhyme with bitches, so you know that it's true. And everything you do it for you. Oh, James, you're a witch hunter, carpet muncher. If you're a Catholic or a witch, your time is through. I saw you shoe in your witch hunting goo. I was trying to find a lyric that was like he was born in 1562 to rhyme with that. Born in 1566, you got a mean, hairy witch hunting dick. Goes on a conquest to kill some fuckers. Protestant king shoots his religious coup. Alright, I'm gonna edit it. It's getting fucking weird. I wish I was drinking for you guys, because then I would make up a great song, but I didn't make up shit. Just want to talk about his witch hunting abs. They're fucking glistening in the sun. Oh God, I love it when he fucking executes witch. All of the witch blood runs down his body. Glistens in the sun. Rubs it in. All smooth and sexy. Okay, guys, I'm going to end it here. I hope you enjoyed this this book review of Daemonologie. I hope you learned a little bit, or if you didn't learn anything, I hope you had a good time, okay? I had a great time. I had a great sober time. It was fantastic. I'm trying to be a little bit healthier. You know, maybe I keep it to the weekends. I keep it fucking fresh, funky, and free of alcohol at times. I want to be coherent for you guys. I want to be able to tell you that you can go to Uncanna and use a code VioPro at checkout and get some fucking CBD at a discounted price. All right? I want to tell you about Logan over at Ping Pong Tactical. Go there, use VioPro at checkout. That's VIOPRO, and get 15% off of your fucking holsters. You know, he makes them hot and fresh for you per the order. That's fucking amazing. He'll make you a special violent professional holster. He's got the fucking ability to do that. If you like this episode, you want a holster to put stuff in, you can go get that. He's got all kinds of patterns you should check out. But also, I'd like to thank Strikeforce Energy for fucking making some wicked fucking fine energy drink that I could just sit on my counter, use the pop top. And I also use my code there, VioPro at checkout, and I get Evil Vibes. And I get some money off, and I get fucking Strikeforce, and it supports this podcast. So I want to thank all my fine sponsors. I want to thank you guys for listening. I want to thank King Jimmy the First for fucking killing all these fucking witches needlessly and unnecessarily, because without him, what the fuck would I talk about tonight or on this episode? And with that, thank you. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.